What's up, home dogs? So today we are talking about color grading. This is episode 1 of a 4-episode series. I don't know what I'm going to call it. Might just call it color grading. I don't know. But today we're going to learn how to correct exposure, white balance, saturation. Those are the 3. So let's go. So first what we're going to do is you're going to open whatever project you're working on. Color grade episode. So this is the clip I am going to choose. It's a long clip. Oh my gosh, that scared me a little bit. Scared me a tad bit. So it's just a long clip with a bunch of different shots. We'll take this shot. That'll be one. We'll take this shot of him singing. Oh, little focus pull. Okay, we'll take that. Okay, so after you drop your clips down, I am shooting an S-Log30. Well, I'm shooting with the Z-Cam, which is with the Atomos, which is ProRes RAW. So you can, in Premiere, you have the option to convert that into Rec 709, any S-Log, any of the log footage or log footage styles you want to turn it into. And I began with Sony, so I'm comfortable with S-Log3. So what we're going to do to start all of this off, all right, we are going to go to Lumetri Scopes, and then you're going to click this little wrench down here, turn on your vector scope, YUV, not HLS, and then you are going to turn on your parade. All right, so these are the 3 that I like to have on, mainly exposure, white balance, and later on, this will be useful later on in later episodes. Now what we're going to do is first we're going to correct the exposure. So we're going to look here, and I like to have my highlights clipping at 90. Highlights clipping at 90. And my shadows clipping at 10. But that will come later on when we start giving contrast, because depending on how flat the footage is that comes out of your camera depends on where these top and bottom ranges are going to be. But mainly what I want to look for, first of all, you want to find what your subject is going to be. All right. And you can tell when I scrub through this, you can see here is getting blown out. This is more than likely our flashing light right here, because you can see it as the light flashes more. See how the scopes raise as we go through that light. So I want to pick what I want to focus on. Same for this one. So more than likely for this clip right here, this line, this little bump right here is my subject. Now this is personal. This is what I think. I like to have my subject sitting between 60 or 80 on the histogram. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to basic correction, start out with basic correction, and I'm just going to raise the exposure until my dude is sitting in between 60 or 80. So 70 is perfect. All right. After you got that, all right, so I'm going to go here, and for this, I actually want it to be a little bit darker. So my subject is going to be a silhouette. So basically now what I'm going to focus on is just make sure that this light is not getting above 90. So I've put that exposure. I don't want it above 90, because once we get there, see, it starts getting really bright. So I'm honestly going to pull it down to about, I'm going to have it about 80 for right now. I'll explain in just a minute. So we have corrected our initial exposure. Now we're going to kind of go into the contrast of it. We'll play more with this in later episodes, but this is going to be the base, what's called an S curve. All right, so you're going to go to your curves, and you're going to make a point. The bottom left intersection of lines, the very center, and the bottom right intersection of lines. Now what we're going to do, we're coming back to this 10 and this 90, all right? We're gonna pull the shadows down until they are at 10, maybe a little past, depending on the look you want. Again, like I say, depending on the look. If you wanna go to 0 and make it super dark, you can. But how I do it is right below 10, right there, all right? Now we're gonna take our highlights and stop them at 90, about right there. All right, now this is where the fun, or when I think the fun comes in. This middle piece right here is again, basically when we are moving the exposure, except it is just gonna take the midtones. So everything from 70 to 20, anything where the majority of the wavelengths are, that's what this is gonna control. And it's lagging, so it's not gonna show it. There it goes. See how when I rise them, the majority go up. When I bring them down, the majority goes down. Now again, this is just going to pick where you want the midtones to be. Again, depending on the shot. If you were going for a faded dark look, you're gonna pull it down and you're gonna give it that faded look. Now, if you want there to be some poppy, contrasty sharpness on your subject, you're gonna pull it up. And that's where I usually sit, and that just looks pretty. And all we've done is exposure. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing here. We're gonna make our 3 points, bring them down to 10. They're basically already there, maybe a little bit lower. Highlights going to 90. There we go. And again, pull this exposure where you want it. Again, if you pull it down, give it a dark, moody look. Bring it up top, and look at that contrast, dude. Dang, and as we scroll through that, man, are you kidding me? This looks good. It just looks good. All right, now from here, what we're gonna do is now we're gonna go to white balance. White balance is something very important, but nobody stresses enough about it, I feel. Like beginners mainly. No one, I did it too, I didn't stress enough about it. If you go back to my old videos, there are some clips or some videos where I'm just like orange or magenta or green like the whole way through because I didn't care about white balance, and it ruins it. Yeah, it ruins it. So what we're gonna do to correct your white balance, go to basic correction, and these two right here, temperature and tint. First option, if you just don't want to do it, you don't want to mess with it, click this white balance selector and find something white and click it, and you're good. Even though a lot of editing is creative and it's your own work, white balance is one of those things, unless you are doing something crazy like glitching or something like that, white balance is one of those things that if you have skin tones, if you have a person as your subject, you need to get that down, because after you get that white balance down, you're free to grade however you want. But white balance is one of those things. Find the white balance selector, find something white or something something that you know the color to, in a sense. So grass, or there's a cloud in your scene. Cloud you can use as a white balance selector, but if you know something, if you know the color, play with those until you think you got the color down. But that's last resort. This is to help if you didn't set the white balance for within your camera. That's a whole nother subject. You need to work the white balance to work in your camera before this, because if your camera white balance is all whacked, this is gonna be tough. But the fact that I kind of had it already there made this a little bit easier. So remember that. After we have that, what we're gonna do, this is how I start to grade or correct. So I do the exposure and everything on the separate clip, because clips change, the exposure is gonna change. But whenever I start going into the fun part, I go right click, new item, adjustment layer, and I drag that on top. All right, and now this one is gonna be used for any extra contrast I wanna do or saturation. More than likely, if you are shooting in anything that is not Rec 709, still, anything that's not giving you the exact color that you see, if you're shooting in any log, Cine 4, anything of the sort, ProRes RAW, any type of ProRes, it's gonna have a flat look. So saturation you're gonna wanna bring back. Now saturation is one of those things people say don't blow it out of the park, but if you blow it out of the park, there's still more correcting that you can do. So don't get scared at this initial saturation. Don't think that you're gonna oversaturate or not saturate enough, because once we start getting into more of the fun grading, you'll be able to fix it. So my rule of thumb is depending on what I'm shooting on. So if I'm shooting on most mirrorless cameras that'll just give a regular log format, I'll bring the saturation to about 125 or 150 maybe. Again, if it goes over, we can correct it later on. Now when I'm shooting ProRes, which this is on the Atomos Ninja, I go all the way up to either 175 or 200. And that's it for correcting. That is just correcting the footage out of your camera to get it back to normal. In episode 2, we're gonna get more into contrast, being able to mask out the subject so you can really have them pop off the screen. Now, a big question someone might have is, why would I wanna shoot in a log format when all I'm gonna do is bring it back to exactly how it looks? Good question. Different formats within your camera, they offer their own advantages. So shooting in a log format can give you a higher dynamic range, which is basically how well the camera can handle super bright things and super dark things. And a very good example that I had told to me, I don't remember from who, but I tell everyone else, is imagine getting a coloring book and you open it and everything's already colored. So like what you could do is color around it or mix the color to give it a different color so you can change what it looks like, but you didn't really do anything. And then imagine log format getting a coloring book that has nothing in it. Then you can have all the fun you want. If you like this episode, make sure to like it. Let me know in the comments if you have any more questions about color grading. I more than likely missed something or said something completely wrong, so just ask me and I'll fix it. Get ready for episode 2 coming out. We're going to be talking about contrast. I love y'all. I really do. It only takes one. Start color grading. It only takes one to start editing along with me while I'm editing, while I'm showing the color grade process. It only takes one to make a change, and it only takes one to change the world, and that could be you. See you next time.